Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And I'm very excited to introduce today's guest, which is Jamie Royce. Hi, Jamie.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You know, Jamie and I collaborated on several projects and work with mutual clients. And you know, Jamie, and I'm going to introduce you, I'm going to give you a bio, and then we're going to hear more about you. But you know, what you're an expert at is basically automating processes. And that's why it's such a great combination, because we create the processes and you come and you automate them and you make things simple for business owners, right? You work with small to medium-sized businesses. First of all, the name of your company is MindCloud, and you specialize in helping small and to medium-sized companies to connect their software and make the most impact integration, basically make the most important integration possible. So if we have different, let's say we go to a business and they're using 5 different software and they're not talking to each other, that's your area of expertise to actually connect those softwares. Like, you know, we work, for instance, on an HVAC company, heating and cooling company, where you actually were able to connect their main software and extract the key metrics out of the software into an Excel spreadsheet that they will actually be able to use in their meetings, as an example. We had another client where we implemented a task management system, and we were able to actually integrate the different software that they had, so it will basically pull into the task management system. And I can give more and more examples, but it's just that simplicity and the automation, and that makes the processes more efficient. And that's really what MindCloud is about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love working with you because you do the part of figuring out what the process should be. And that is such a big problem where customers don't yet know exactly what it should be like. And then MindCloud comes in and tries to solve a problem that they don't even know what it should be. So we work good together because, you know, if our customers know, or if you say this is what the process should be, we can build it, we can automate it and get it set up. But I see that so much that people don't know what is the most streamlined and simple way to do things. And software won't solve it unless you actually know what it should solve and what it should do.
That's exactly right. I mean, you definitely have to have a well-defined process and then see how the software will fit. But, you know, what I would like to talk today, so we can actually, our listeners can benefit from it and learn from it, is basically really understanding the subject of automation. And I think the biggest question is like, when should I automate and what should I automate, right? So from your experience, I know you've been helping many, many clients. You know, what is the number one pain point that you encounter with small to medium-sized businesses that then they contact you and they say, hey, Jamie, help me out?
I would say the biggest thing is anywhere that you are copying and pasting from one screen to another screen. If data exists in one place, it's very likely that it could automatically go in that other place. And there's very inexpensive, even free tools that can help you do that. There's tools like Zapier, where you can have automation set up to replace things like that. But the number one thing, which I always have my customers look for, is where are they copying and pasting the same data from one place to another place? And then you just calculate the number of minutes, hours per day, per week you're spending on that, calculate how much your labor time is worth. And then you know immediately the ROI of how much you have to spend to automate that. If you're gonna spend less money to fully automate what it's costing you or your staff to do, you know that that is a win-win situation.
Absolutely. And there is also the factor of mistakes, right? Because the copy and paste or the entering the information, it's not just copy and paste, it's also, let's say, entering the information 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, unnecessarily. And that can also lead to costly mistakes, right? It can also, if your employee quits all of a sudden, then what? So then somebody else has to learn how to do it. But that way, you're actually ensuring that this task is continually being done.
Yeah, one just anecdote on that. One of my customers just told me the story last week. He deals with huge ordering of equipment for his customers, and he has to place big orders that take months and months and months of lead time, and they finally show up and they could do the install. And because of one of these data entry errors where the order came in on their sales system and he typed it in, or one of their staff typed it into the accounting system to actually place the order, they did the wrong color of huge speakers. And all this $80,000 worth of speakers got shipped to the customer, and they were the wrong color for the room, not what we ordered. So there's a huge cost, a huge, delay and all that, which was purely and only because of a copy and paste error or manual data entry, and you had a little typo, B instead of BL or something like that. One letter cost $80,000 worth of mistakes. So yeah, it's very vital, especially with bigger accounts and things like that. An error could cost tens of thousands of dollars.
Absolutely. Now, what area of the organization do you see most that your clients use the most in terms of automation, that they gravitate towards that area?
The biggest is sales and accounting. You've got usually a CRM that deals with where your sales are. And then you've got an accounting system. Simple example is like HubSpot and QuickBooks. They don't natively talk to each other. So people are selling, doing their pipelines over here. And when it comes time to send an estimate, they go over to this other screen, create the data, create the customer, often typing in wrong data because they have the name, address, email, billing address, all in their sales system, but it's not in QuickBooks. So then we have customers that are like, can we synchronize the data between the two so I don't have to type it in again? But yeah, going into this other system, sending out an estimate, creating an invoice, and then you have to go back to your sales system and say, the deal was closed, this was the value, so I could keep track of it for my sales statistics. So that's the biggest, is sales, accounting, marketing and sales. Any section of an organization that's in a different department, it could have the same type of issue. And that's like the concept of a data silo.
Right. And I encountered it a lot. Even yesterday, I was talking to a client when we were documenting their processes where, they have their CRM, then they have the accounting software, and then they also use like a DocuSign kind of software for automatic signing. So they're waiting for the thing to come through the DocuSign, then it has to go, they have to record it in the CRM, then they have to generate pay the invoice in QuickBooks. So it's all a manual process that if the data actually communicates and talk to each other behind the scenes, it can be very much automated.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you have a business owner that they have a lot of software, we all very like all the different apps, all the different, things that are out there, right? But I think sometimes it can become too many, right? You can have too many software. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's so common now because there's so many. It's so easy to start a software company. Anybody can build an app. There's even no code platforms that you could build an entire app, have it available to sell. So there's thousands of apps that are possible. And some of them are really good at specific things like, PandaDoc or, DocuSign or DocHub. They're great for one specific thing. But if they don't talk to your sales thing, you're just copying and pasting or typing in. And the more and more you do that, it almost becomes counterintuitive or a double-edged sword where you've got 8 or 10 different platforms to save you time and money. But then you're spending all this time and money with the manual data entry to keep them all talking to each other. And then you've got 8 or 10 different subscription fees. So I have customers that have been like, okay, let's just review and see what are all the redundant software expenses. And, I've seen 30, 40 different subscriptions, sometimes more. The average modern day business owner has 8 to 10 different main software that they use. That's, I think, a low estimate, but it's crazy.
It is, but I use the same. Yes. So let's say if our listeners are asking themselves right now, how do I know if I have redundant software? I mean, obviously, if I have 2 calendaring software that help my calendaring, I know it's redundant, right? But can you give us some advice? How should we actually evaluate whether we have redundant software, and how can we evaluate which software should we actually maybe get rid of or not use?
Yeah, software and their purpose can be very complicated and confusing. And some software like Salesforce started with one thing, but then grew into many, many, many other things and seemed to offer everything, but really it's just supposed to be one thing. So I think a good way to do it is start with what is the purpose of each of your software that you're currently using. If you went through and listed out on a spreadsheet every piece of software, and then just in 1 word or 2 words said, what is the purpose of that software? Sales, accounting, marketing, estimates, or scheduling, you'll probably come down to 4 or 5 categories of type of purpose. Usually you'll be able to group it in there. Watch out for overlapping software that isn't really good at everything, but they're really good at one thing. If it was made for sales and you really want to use it for sales. Don't try to use it for accounting if it's not an accounting software. I've seen that a lot where you get this Frankenstein approach where a software was really good at one thing, but then they wanted to compete and get more business. Right. So they add on this and add on that. And pretty soon it seems like that does everything now, but it's like Salesforce is not an accounting software, but there's add-ons and things that you could now use it for everything, but then it opens up all these other issues where it's not a pure accounting software. So anyway, that's a good just general, like what's the purpose of the software, and kind of look for the overlaps. That's what I would advise.
Absolutely. So, probably what you will recommend is that people don't shy away from actually having software. They just need to understand the purpose and understand that they can communicate and make sure that all the software communicate to each other. And that's really what you do is behind the scenes, you make it communicate. So you have you're creating this one software that creates everything, but actually using the specialty or the specialization of the software that you are using, right? I mean, if you have a software that is specifically intended to be a CRM and it's really good, you don't have to give it up because you also want it to have an accounting software there. You can actually communicate between that software and, let's say, QuickBooks or Xero, another accounting software, very easily by connecting them, but you don't have to then compromise on a lower quality of a product that doesn't have all the features. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly correct.
Yeah. So give me some inspiring stories where you help the client, you work with the client, and it really saved them time and it really increased their efficiency or profitability.
Yeah, I was going to tell this story. We'll leave out names, but there was a client who had an antiquated software for a very big organization and a lot of staff, but it was an antiquated piece of software. They didn't want to upgrade because the cost was $10,000, $20,000 to upgrade the software, which is a pretty big deal for software for a small or medium-sized business. But to use that antiquated piece of software that didn't have the capability to talk to other software, there was 12 staff that were spending almost half of their day every day keeping their different software in touch with each other, copying data from one, exporting a spreadsheet, going into the accounting system and entering the different sales in the other system. And I did a tally with this customer and found that there was about $45,000 a year of labor cost that was being spent to satisfy the poor requirements of the antiquated software. And the cost to upgrade to a better modern that did everything was only about $10,000 or something like that. So they were wasting $30,000 of labor in spite of the, they could have just upgraded with this modern platform. So I was bringing that up because be willing to look for modern solutions. Don't get stuck in your 20-year-old Excel spreadsheet that you've got, 50 pages, 50 sheets to keep track of your inventory, and then it's too slow. And another customer I had was using a Google Sheet document with about 20 or 30 staff all logging in at the same time, and they kept track of all inventory. There was hundreds of thousands of rows. The Google Sheet would basically explode. Like, it just stopped working because too many people were trying to use it, and they didn't want to upgrade and pay for an inventory management system. They wanted to use this old system. So it was causing errors and issues and labor costs and all this. But that was just really because being on old software that doesn't quite do what it should, or it doesn't talk to other software, or it's cumbersome. Be willing to find an expert who knows, like you, get somebody who actually knows how to build a process and design what a process should be. And then you should talk to an expert like you to really understand the software that they need and how the software can talk to each other. Exactly. Yeah. And the thing I was going to say is, you could have the most fancy automated program, but if you don't have the process figured out, you're going to have just a confused automated mess. You have to actually know what the process is first before you try to automate everything. Otherwise, you're just speeding up and exacerbating your existing problem by making it faster. And I've seen it really bad that way as well, trying to automate before you understand what your own process is. So just to kind of just take a step backwards, so important. The first thing is figure out what your process should be. Take whatever time it needs to, work with an expert on figuring out what the process should be, then figure out how to automate that. And the key things are, where do you have to enter data twice? What's tedious entry, repetitive tasks, things that are being done more than once? Most likely all of those type of things could be automated. 100%. And, and one of the things that we know is that you really have to have metrics in order to evaluate an organization. I mean, yesterday I did a podcast with Greg Crabtree, and from Simple Numbers. He is a best-selling author of Simple Numbers, which is a book you can find on Amazon. Great book. Cool. And he talks there about metrics that a company should keep in order to actually see if they're profitable or not. But that made me think that automating and extracting data, like what you do, also helps companies extract their data so they don't have to manually go figure out different metrics. We have done it with one of our mutual clients where they needed information, they needed reports every single day in order to manage their business, but it was just too cumbersome to go. I mean, it would have taken them like probably the whole day just to find all that information in order for them to make a decision. But by doing those integrations and by actually making sure that you extract the right data from the right piece of software and doing your magic behind the scenes, you can actually get the actual number, and then they can have that number in order to evaluate where things are at. Yeah, totally. It also reminds me of like working with blinders on. It's hard to solve the problem if you don't look at what the problem is. Keeping KPIs, dashboards, ways to keep track of your numbers in an automated way makes it easy, because it is cumbersome to keep track of your graph and your statistics every day and enter a number in. I mean, we have that, internally with sales, where you want them to track different things so you can see how they're doing. Tools like HubSpot's dashboard. By the way, a tip, there is a free version of HubSpot for any users who want a great CRM. It's really awesome. There's an unlimited version, and it has all the basic features of a CRM. and they have a dashboard. So you can keep track of all your calls, your emails, your meetings, daily, weekly, monthly, annually, automated. And it's all built in. And there's software solutions out there that do that. But it's the key thing is like, you have to be willing to confront and look at what the issue is and what's the scene if you want to improve. And that, just to your point of numbers and keeping track of them, so important.
Absolutely. And that's also, but you agree that sometimes it can become cumbersome to actually find those numbers.
Yes, definitely.
And that's why it's really important to also have that automation in order to be able to create those reports.
Yeah, the example I think you were mentioning, so there was a software platform called Service Titan. It's very good for what it does, but it didn't have a very specific type of report that could be compared to QuickBooks. So to make sure that a job got paid for and the money arrived in QuickBooks, somebody was having to pull reports, which was 5-10 minutes to generate a report, then open up a report, then log into QuickBooks, generate another report in We're talking an hour of fiddling just to get the data, let alone analyze the data. And that was an example where we built a simple little dashboard that pulled the data every hour automatically from Service Titan, pulled the data from QuickBooks, from 2 different QuickBooks accounts automatically, put it all on one line so you could see the job, exactly what the job was supposed to be, and exactly what got deposited. And then the person could look in a few seconds a day and see, is there anything to reconcile, any money that didn't come in that was supposed to come in? And that sped up that person's whole business process. But like you said, it's hard to extract. Sometimes it's hard to get the data, but using an automated solution can help solve that. Absolutely.
So Jamie, if people want to find out more about you and how they can use the services, where should they go?
Best would just go to our website, mindcloud.co, and there's a get started or book a call with us. You can find us on LinkedIn, just MindCloud, all over social media. But yeah, that would be the best, to just schedule a call with us right from our homepage.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. There was a wealth of information. And I know our listeners are thinking right now, like, how many software am I actually using? How am I going to make each and every software to communicate to one another? Well, if you have questions about that, definitely book a call with Jamie, and he can talk to you about Jamie or his team, and they can talk to you about that.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.